Welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Rick Utze from Maranatha Community Fellowship in Plain City, Ohio. This past week, my daughter forwarded me a link to a news article about a lady who was in the hospital for 4 days because she was wearing skinny jeans. And it just so turns out that these skinny jeans she had on, she was helping a friend or family member move, and she was squatting a lot, cleaning out cabinets and doing that kind of thing. And because of that, it caused damage to her muscles and nerves because I guess it was so tight, it cut off circulation, the muscles swelled, nerve damage. She couldn't walk. She laid there for a couple hours. And she was in the hospital, and I think she fully recovered after quite a bit of time. But as I was thinking about that, I was also studying out of Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2. And here's what the verses say. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." You know, it says, lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. And I had to think about those skinny jeans. I mean, they cling so closely. Man, unless you're young and very skinny, you should not even think about wearing those. Now there's another reason not to wear them. Medically, they're bad for you, or they can be if they're too tight. And that's the way it is when we run the Christian life. I'm talking about evangelism in church right now. It's the messages I'm preaching on. And that's the most important thing God has called us to, is to tell others about Jesus and to live our lives in such a way to shine light and love and show God's grace and speak it in truth and grace. But so many times there's things that prevent us from doing it, from fear, sin in our own lives. This is why it says, lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. And I got kind of a new perspective. Usually when I thought about that, it's like, of course you need to lay aside sin. You need to stop sinning. God's called us to be holy. He's called us to be separate. He's called us to live a life that's pure. He's called us to be like Himself. And of course that's what He wants in our lives. And He wants us to lay aside that sin. He wants us to take it off, put it to the side so it doesn't hinder our race, the way we run. But I got a new perspective on this as I was thinking about Philip and the evangelist. And we oftentimes think of these Bible characters as these great men of God who never had any problems, never had anything go wrong in their lives. And Paul's a great man, and Moses was a great man. And so this verse in chapter 12 refers to this great cloud of witnesses. And it's talking about people in the Old Testament who were faithful to God. But if you look at some of the characters, you got Abraham, who showed some doubt and fear as he went into certain lands and kind of lied about his wife being his sister, even though it was a half-truth. She was kind of a half-stepsister. But so at times he doubted, but then he endured, he walked, he had faith in God. You look at Jacob, he was a deceiver, and yet God calls him and said he was faithful and endured to the end. And it talks about Moses, he killed someone, he murdered someone, an Egyptian, and yet God brought him back and used him greatly to run the race. And then you think of David, he committed adultery, he murdered, there was a big cover-up. Can you imagine what would happen today if one of our leaders was caught like that? I mean, it'd be over social media, it'd be on the news cycle. I mean, you would hear about it it would go on and on. And yet God forgave. He showed grace to them, and they continued to run the race and endure. Rahab was a prostitute that God used in Jesus' own lineage. I mean, she was like a great grandmother to Jesus, and God used her. So none of us are perfect. Yes, lay aside sin, but I think He's also telling us, don't get stuck in your past. Don't be spinning your wheels with the guilt and the shame of things that you've done wrong in your past. I mean, I could have been a better father. There's things that I've done that I wish I could change. But that doesn't mean that we just give up. God's saying, you know what? Yeah, you could have done things better, but come on. I have forgiven you. I have showered my grace upon you. Accept it and move on in Jesus Christ and in the grace that He gives us. And so here's the bottom line. Let's lay aside the skinny jeans, the things that just wrap around us so tight that we can't run the race like we're supposed to run it. Lay aside the sin, lay aside the old guilt and shame, because Jesus Christ paid for it. And He said, you're cleansed. His righteousness is now on us. So let's run the race with endurance and show God's love to other people. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Bottom Line.